Hello, my grade 8s. We are going to try again with our lesson on French verbs. So here goes. I've got a little video. By now you should have received the link on YouTube. So here goes. So what is a verb? We can start with that. We've talked about this before in class. A verb is an action word. And action words or verbs are super important in a language because a verb actually indicates when. If you're trying to express yourself to somebody, you can tell them when something happened just by using the verb. For example, if we take the verb to buy, you say, I bought candy. It's understood that this is an action that's already taken place. You put the verb in the past tense. Or if you say, I am buying candy, it means it's something that you're doing right now. If you say, I buy candy, it means it's something you do on a regular basis. You don't have to be doing it right now, though. And if you say, I'm going to buy candy, you're letting people know what your plans are. So a verb is really important. We're going to learn a whole bunch of verbs today. And there's two columns here. One of them says ER, and the other one says RE. That's because in French, there's a lot of verbs that end the same way. These ones all end in ER, these ones end in RE, and they behave the same when you use them in a sentence. But that's something for another lesson. Today we're just going to focus on translating these into English so we understand what they mean. If you like, you can think of the ER as being like the French version of ing, buying, dancing, singing. These are ways of explaining verbs. Or, for example, let's talk about acheter first. Acheter means to buy. Or you can say buying. It's your choice. It's both. You can say to buy. I like to buy candy, or I like buying candy. It kind of works both ways. Aider means to help. You can see it has the word aid in it, which is somebody who is an aid is an assistant or a helper. Aimer means to like or to love. It means both in French. You have to be a little careful when you use the verb aimer. It can lead to some kind of confusing conversations if you don't do it right. Arriver means to arrive. That's an easy one. It looks just like the English word. As we go through this, you'll see there's a lot of connections between French and English. Lots of words that are shared. Cacher means to hide. Lots of people remember this by thinking about hiding their cash. Chanter, well, if you know what chanting means, you know that chanter likely means to sing. Chercher means to look for. Kind of sounds and looks like the word search. If you're searching for something, you're looking for it. Chercher. Commencer means to begin or to start. And we have the English word commence, which means the same thing. Commencer. Danser means to dance. That's a nice easy one for you to remember. Danser. Now, we've seen some of these look just like English and kind of mean the same thing, so you might think to yourself, demander, that must mean to demand. You're close, but not quite right. Demander means to ask, or even you can say to ask for something as well. It kind of means both. So you can see it's pretty close. If you're demanding something, you're asking for something. Not quite the same meaning, though. Détester means to hate. We have the English word detest, which means the same thing. If you detest something, you hate it. Détester. Donner is to give. Think about being a donor or making a donation. Échanger is to exchange. Once again, very similar to English. Échanger, to exchange. Écouter means to listen. Or even to listen to. I guess that the idea of to is included as well. Écouter, to listen to. Entrer, another easy one, to enter. Étudier means to study. If you were a piano player or a musician, you may have done an étude before. An étude is like a study in a key or in a scale. Fermer is to shut or to close. Means both. So sometimes teachers will say to the students, fermez la bouche, which means shut your mouth. Habiter means to live in. Think about an animal living in its habitat. To inhabit a place, a similar word to English. Jouer is to play. I can't really think of any kind of English helper words for this one. It's a word that you just have to learn. Manger is to eat. Manger. Monter has a variety of meanings, such as to climb, climb a mountain, or to get on something, get on top of something. The English word that we have is mount. If you mount something, you get on top of something. Oublier is to forget. Oublier, to forget. Parler is to speak or to talk. Means both. Parler. Think about Parliament, where all the politicians go and they talk all day long. Penser is to think. And once again, we have an English word or two that can help us with this. If you're a pensive person, that means you're a person who's in thought. Quitter doesn't mean to quit. It means to exit or to leave a place. Regarder means to watch or to look at. It means both. So if you're regarding something, you're looking at it, you're watching it. Rencontrer means to meet. We have the English word encounter, which is similar to this. Rencontrer. Rentrer has a variety of different meanings. Perhaps the most useful one to you would be to go back. Often the idea is to go back home. Not always, but to go back home is probably the best translation I want you to use for now. So rentrer, to go back home. You can think about re-entering your house. Rester does not mean to rest. It means to stay or remain. To stay. Retourner means to return. Travailler is to work. Trouver is to find. Think about like a treasure trove. If you find a treasure trove. Utiliser is to use. And voyager is to travel. Okay, so those are some very, very common ER verbs, and I'll explain how to use them in a sentence properly in our next lesson. But for now, let's just quickly do some pronunciation work. I will say it, you repeat after me, even though I can't hear you. Okay? Acheter, aider, aimer, arriver, cacher, chanter, chercher, commencer, danser, demander, détester. Remember that accent over the E like that makes you say et, which we've discussed, right? That accent aigu makes you say et. Donner, échanger, écouter, entrer, étudier, fermer, habiter, jouer, manger, monter, oublier, parler, penser, quitter, regarder, rencontrer, rentrer, rester, retourner, travailler, trouver, utiliser, and voyager. All right, I'm sure that you guys sound fantastic. Don't be afraid of the French R. Remember, practice it. These verbs are called RE verbs. Once again, it's kind of the same thing. Ing, if you want to say this verb. Attendre means to wait for, or waiting for, if you prefer. Descendre means to, looks like the English word, to descend, which means to go down. And it has, so everything that monter means, monter, which means to climb or to get on, descendre means the opposite, to go down, to get off of, or something like that. Entendre is to hear. Now, entendre is sometimes confused with écouter. Écouter means to listen to. Entendre is to hear. And they have different meanings. On the slideshow that I'm going to assign, or the Quizlet that I'm going to assign for you to do for homework, hearing a noise is different than listening to music. So if you look at the pictures carefully, you'll be able to figure out which one is listen and which one is hear. Perdre is to lose. Répondre is to answer. Looks like the word respond. Rendre is to give back. If you have borrowed something from me and you want to give it back to me, you use the verb rendre, or if you like, you can say to return, but not to return to a place, to return something, to return an object. And vendre is to sell, and this is also a fairly easy one because if you think of a vendor or a vending machine, they sell you things. So these RE verbs are pronounced differently than these ER verbs. Repeat after me, please. Attendre, descendre, entendre, perdre, répondre, rendre, and vendre. You guys sound fantastic. Okay, so our first step here is to learn what these verbs mean before we can start to figure out how to use them in a sentence. So this is what you're going to do now. You're going to go to Quizlet.com. You're going to search for my name just like this. It has to be exactly like this with the underscore, otherwise you won't find it. Once you're there, you check in the grade 8 folder and you do the study set entitled Grade 8 ER/RE Verbs. You'll have a whole bunch of photographs that you're going to have to label with these words over here. Some of them are going to be obvious. Some of them are going to be less obvious. And through practice, you'll figure out which verb each picture is supposed to represent. We would have gone over it in class ordinarily, but we don't have that option right now. So be patient. You're going to get a lot of them wrong to start off with until you figure out which verb you're being asked to write down. But practice it, and you'll get to it. And next week, what we'll do is we are going to learn how to use these verbs in a sentence, because when you use a verb in a sentence, you have to change it. For example, if you go to the verb to buy in English, think about it. I would say, I buy candy, but I don't say she buy candy. I say she buys candy. We have to change the verb buy. Sometimes we say she buys. And you have to do this in French as well. So we'll talk about how to do that in our next lesson. So here you go. I wish you all good luck. If you have any questions, please make sure you email me. Bye-bye, everybody.